Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for y'all. So today we're going to be covering Adamancipator once again. We did already cover this deck at the top of the season, but now that the card Black Dragon is actually at 1, I wanted to go over it again, because last time we were still playing in the meta where Black Dragon was at 3, we were just testing a build with only 1 copy. So I'm still using the same build that I was testing before. I wanted to play with it a little bit more in this format before I made any changes and deciding how I wanted to take the deck moving forward. So I did touch on this last time, and after playing a bit more, I do think we are a little bit light on excavation targets for our Adamancipator monsters here. I think the ratios that I have here are probably about the bare minimum you could expect to get away with and still relatively consistently hit your excavates. I have noticed that I've been whiffing or coming close to whiffing a bit more often than I have with past variants than I am with this one. A lot of that is because I'm playing, so many spells and trap cards, which, 6 out of 40 doesn't seem like so much, but for a deck like this, it actually kind of is. So, the Foolishes, the Callbys, the Crossout, and the Imperms. I could see myself cutting, the Imperms possibly. Definitely want to keep Callbys. Maybe Crossout I could maybe see cutting, but I really like having Callby and Crossout, if nothing else, if no other spell and trap cards in this deck. But for cutting Imperms, I could see myself cutting a Crossout. Maybe cut 1 Imperm. Foolish I could also potentially see cutting, but with Black Dragon at 1, I think it's a lot more important, now more so than ever, I think, to have a copy of Foolish Burial so that you have more consistent access to your Black Dragon. Of course, we're using Gallant Granite to maintain consistent access to Black Dragon, but that said, it doesn't hurt to have more avenues, because now, if your Gallant Granite gets negated, before it was a little bit more likely that you would have Black Dragon, or you had Foolish one, or Milled one rather, off of that Grass is Greener. But now, of course, we're not playing that. We're playing a 40 card variant instead of a 60 card variant, so I also did see some comments asking why I wasn't using the Earth Hex Sealed fusion with Knightmare Beast and or Barkion and then X Trio. I have run into that variant on ladder. I have seen that variant. I'm aware of it. Like I said though, first and foremost, I wanted to just try out my initial build and see how I liked it, see what I wanted to change about it, just to get a feel of what Adamancipator should be doing moving forward post-ban list. I think, however, that I don't know. I struggle to want to craft Knightmare Beast and or Barkion to try that variant, just because I don't personally think it's probably the optimal one. I don't think it's a bad way to play the deck by any means, but I don't think it's necessarily the best. I don't think any one way to play this deck is the best right now, especially I think a lot of us are still experimenting with Black Dragon being at 1, some different engines and different builds, so on and so forth. That is one of the things that I actually really like about Adamancipator just as a deck, is that there are so many different ways you can build it, and there's so many different engines you can put in. It's kind of like Dragon Link in that regard. It's a little bit more focused in what it does than Dragon Link, but it's still relatively freeform, given the nature of the excavates and all that as well. There is still a general combo line or pattern that you can follow, but again, like Dragon Link, it just tends to be more of a freeform deck. So again, not just in how it plays, but how it's built as well. I know I've cut out the grasses here, but you could still easily play this as a 60 card deck, and I don't even think that's bad at all. Because what that allows, even if Black Dragon is only at 1 and you have a much less chance of actually milling the Black Dragon itself, you can still play the 3 Rock Band Xeno guitars, and then all you have to do at that point is banish one of those out of the graveyard. You could do that with Gigantes, you could do that with any number of cards, and then from there you can Foolish the Black Dragon with the Rock Band Xeno Guitars effect. So that's another very valid variant. The 60 card build is still fairly valid, and I actually may even try out the 60 card build. I don't know, I'm still trying to decide exactly where I want this deck to be post-ban list. So we've got some games to show with this particular list, so I'm going to go ahead and, as always, ever break it down card by card before we take a look at those games. Let me just look over the list real quick. Is there anything else I wanted to touch on with this deck? I don't think there is. I still like the Buster Lock. I think that's fine. It's 1 main deck slot and 1 extra deck slot. That's definitely, I think that's fine in order to just have the access to that lock. Yeah, no, I think that's about everything I wanted to say. So yep, let's just go ahead and break it down card by card. So in this build, we're playing 1 Effect Veiler, 1 Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, 3 Maxx, 3 Doki Doki, 1 Prank-Kids Dropsies, 3 Adamancipator Seeker, 3 Adamancipator Researcher, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Gigantes, 3 Koa'ki Mirror Guardian, 1 Revival Golem, 1 Tackle Crusader, 3 Prank-Kids Rocksies, 2 Adamancipator Analyzer, 3 Koa'ki Mirror Supplier, 1 Black Dragon, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Foolish Burial, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, and 2 Infinite Impermanence. That is going to go ahead and round out the main deck. Now for the extra deck, we're playing 1 Herald of the Arclight, 1 Adamancipator Risen Raptite, 1 Borreload Savage Dragon, 1 Adamancipator Risen Dragite, 1 Baronne de Fleur, 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Chengying, 1 Gallant Granite, 1 Prank-Kids Meow-Meow-Mu, 1 Prank-Kids Dodo-Doodle-Doo, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Union Carrier, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, 1 Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess, 1 Axis Code Talker, and then finally 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. And I did actually remember one other thing I wanted to mention about the deck, and that was there is a variant, and I think I've actually played this variant before. I'm trying to remember. I think there's a variant in this deck where you can actually do the whole like Nemesis Corridor and Thunder Dragon Colossus line. That is kind of like Dragon Buster Destruction Sword and Union Carrier, where it's like it takes up 1 main deck slot and 1 extra deck slot to allow for another like powerful end piece, or combo piece to your end board, so to speak. So I could see myself playing that. It does require, I think the main deck slot is actually a lot more cumbersome than the extra deck slot here, because like I don't really need Chengying or Underworld Goddess. Like those are kind of honestly free slots in this extra deck right now. But again, I'm already looking to try to fit more excavate targets in, so trying to drop cards to make room for a Nemesis Corridor on top of doing that. It's a bit much potentially, but who knows, maybe we'll try to figure it out. So that's the only other thing I wanted to say here. So now let's go and take a look at some gameplay. Now for our first game here, we're going to be playing against Swordsoul Tenyi, and this is actually, if I recall correctly, going to be a game where we go second. So we have to play through one of the more commonly seen decks here in their turn 1 board. We do have an Infinite Impermanence that's very good against Swordsoul Tenyi, but with only Adamancipator Seeker and a Gigantes, like, that's going to be a little bit rough to make plays with just these. Them getting a Desires off is also not ideal in this situation, because they get that, starting advantage. So they Moye and reveal Longyan. That's also not super great for me, because the fact they have Longyan means that as long as they have any other Swordsoul or Tenyi card, they can still make plays. And actually, because they have Heavenly Dragon Circle, they can even further make plays. So this is definitely a bit of a yikes for me here. However, they added Swordsoul of Taya as opposed to the level 4 Water Tenyi, the, oh god, what is that one called? Shathana. They should have added that, because then they could have special the tokens, special Shathana, gone for their level 8 Synchro, and then further on top of that still had the Longyan. So fortunately for me, they added the Taya instead. They are still going to be able to make plays, of course, but now they can't summon their level 8 Synchro on top of their level 10 Synchro. So they did discard the Taya for Longyan, so maybe they didn't have anything else to discard. That would have been really unlucky if that's the case, but now that I see them throw out that Taya, I think that might have been what happened here. So still going to make the Baron, burn me for 1200. They have a Protoss as well, although Calling Dark doesn't really hurt me that much. The only thing that really stops me in the extra deck is going to be like Access Code. That definitely does kind of matter. IP Masquerena, that doesn't really matter too much. And Borreload Savage Dragon, which is like a little annoying, but going second, not as big of a deal. So fortunately, I did rip another Imperm off the top of my deck. I guess I'm just the luckiest player in the world, so I get to turn off this Baronne de Fleur and not have to worry about it for my turn moving forward. I am still going to be banking pretty hard on the Seeker Excavate, but fortunately, I not only hit, but I hit Doki Doki, which is probably just about the best thing I could have hit. So I'm going to go into the Researcher, and now before I make any more plays, I'm going to make this Herald of the Arclight, just in case my opponent's face-down card is a Blackout, because my opponent was getting prompts to respond with some sort of effect. Now, that could have been the negated Baron effect. Even though it's negated, they will still get prompts to respond, but I didn't want to take any chances. So I'm going to throw out the Herald here before I special my Gigantes, and then go for the Raptite. Unfortunately, I did not hit off my Researcher, right? Looks like I whiffed on that. Yeah, unfortunately, I whiffed on that, so that's definitely a blow, but we're gonna have to just make do. We've got the Raptite. Now I've already used Researcher, so I don't get another Excavate, but I can still, combo out this Dragite here, or turbo out this Dragite. And now I'll use that effect to try to bounce as many of my opponent's cards as possible. They don't have anything left to banish for Protoss, and Baron obviously isn't coming back, and I actually managed to hit for all 4, so really the only thing that I have to worry about of that stuff I bounce back is the one card my opponent said. I guess Protoss could potentially come down just because my opponent doesn't have anything in graveyard now. Doesn't mean that'll be the case moving forward, but I've got this Herald of the Arclight moving forward, so I do have an Omni Negate. One thing to note about the Dragite is that I don't have a water monster in my graveyard, so I can't count on my Dragite's spell and trap negation. I summoned Dragite for the Excavate and then Bounce was my main reason for doing that, so... And then the opponent concedes. So there is a nice game where we're able to, even though we whiffed on Excavate, and that's kind of what I mean when I said during the actual deck profile itself that, you know, there are definitely some times where I'm noticing that I'm not able to hit as many times as I have in the past while playing this deck with even other 40 card variants, not just when I was playing the 60 card grass variant. So I don't know. I do definitely think I need some more targets here, but, you know, at the very least, we're able to win this game without, even though, you know, again, we missed one of our excavates there. So there's that one. Let's go and take a look at the next duel. This one here is going to be against Runic, and it does look like to be a bit more of a pure variant. It's running Cyber Valleys, which is an interesting, I guess, kind of tech choice. I suppose it makes sense. You know, you can banish the extra deck monster, draw some extra cards, and you can, you know, use more quick play spells, summon more Runic extra deck monsters. I can definitely see it. So I'm going to start off with a Doki Doki and just pitch another Doki Doki, and just to see if I get the Seeker off. And I actually do. But even if my opponent had negated it with like Valor, Imperm, or Ash, you know, I can still special summon this Researcher in my hand and then go off from there. Like use that Excavate, and then from there I still have the Supplier as well. So even if my Doki Doki had been negated, that is still, I would have still had plays here. So, but you know, fortunately I get the Seeker off, and I get to Excavate off that. I hit a level 4 monster, which is nice. I'm going to go ahead and summon this Tackle Crusader here. And then once again, because when I was actually playing this game, I was getting prompts from my opponent. They were trying to respond with a card effect. So I'm going to throw out the Herald early here. I don't usually do this, even though I've done it, you know, 2 games now in this video. It's usually only under circumstances where I think my opponent has a response that I'll do this. You know, I'll go out of my way to make the Herald of the Arclight early. Of course, the other key factor is that I need to have additional plays, you know, beyond the Herald of the Arclight. That basically I'm giving these 2 materials up to summon this Omni Negate. You need to have another combo more or less fully in hand besides that. Now I do have the ability to go into Gallant Granite, so between that adding Block Dragon, like that I know by itself is going to be enough, but I actually managed to hit a Rocksies off of this Excavate with Researcher here, which is perfect. It's literally the exact one I wanted to hit, because that's going to let me go into Meow-Meow-Mu, and then Dropsies, and then from there I can go Dodo-Doodle-Doo, and that'll make setting up the Appaloosa a lot easier, and then from there my future plays. If I hadn't hit the Rocksies there, I was probably just going to make IP Masquerena with Gallant Granite and Block Dragon, get those searches, and then, I don't know, probably make Appaloosa with IP and some combination of monsters. It really just would have depended on, you know, what I would have hit off of. Actually, I think I've already used both the Excavates, so the Excavates aren't really a factor anymore, right? Yeah, I've already used both Seeker and Researcher, so... yeah, I don't know, if I hadn't hit the Rocksies there, I probably still would have just tried to go for Appaloosa plus Borreload Savage Dragon. I think I would have been able to pull that off. Alright, now here at the Raptite, I managed to find this Analyzer, which is so nice, because that's going to be yet another Excavate. And then from there, I'm able to go into, you know, a more full combo. Like I'm able to get the Borreload out, and the Union Carrier as well. That's the other one I was trying to think of. So, yeah, I wanted to show this game off. Oh, and then we get a Dragite off as well here, too, because we get to special summon the Seeker, because we normal summoned that initially. So, I wanted to show this line off, just to show that, again, if you suspect your opponent has a Disruption in hand, like if they're getting prompts to respond, if you think they might have like a Valor, an Imperm, and a Nibiru or something, there are a lot of hands where you can make Herald of the Arclight like relatively early, and Doki Doki discarding a level 2 as we started this playoff is probably the easiest way to facilitate that. So wanted to show that off because Herald of the Arclight isn't something I see in every Adamancipator extra deck, and maybe it doesn't need to be in every Adamancipator extra deck to be fair, but I think it's an extremely useful tool to have for this exact reason. So let's go start off with Dimensional Fissure. This was definitely a bait, but since I've already got my whole board set up, I don't feel pressured by this Dimensional Fissure at all. I even got like multiple Earth monsters already set up in graveyards, so like, well, I guess to be fair, if Black Dragon dies now, it'll get banished, but I'm not worried about it. That's the moral of the story here. So this I'm fine letting resolve. This doesn't do anything. The Pot of Desires I'll negate with a Dragite. I'll use Dragite specifically because it negates spell and trap cards. I will leave these as Omni negates, just because they can negate anything. I want to have them up to negate things that are like really gonna hurt. But this Desires, I don't want my opponent to get any more advantage, because the more cards they have in hand, the more likely they are of running me out. I am a little scared of Forbidden Droplet here, I'll be honest. And that is one thing you do have to be mindful of when you're playing, you know, Adamancipators, is Forbidden Droplet. That card can be potentially very devastating. It very much matters what your opponent's got and what deck they're playing, but you do have to be mindful that like boards like this are not necessarily automatic wins. So they go to activate Golden Droplet and they use the effect that causes me to draw and then banish 4. I'm actually fine with that. I don't care about that, so I'm just going to let that resolve. I want to save my Omni Negates for something that's scarier. This Runic Tip is definitely going to qualify as something scarier. I don't want them to have a fountain and start recycling their cards and get even more advantage, so I'm definitely going to Borreload Savage Dragon this Runic Tip. I could have maybe waited for them to actually add the fountain, but I decided not to really risk it here. So next they're going to use Runic Dispelling. Again, if they're just going to be, you know, pulling cards from my hand and banishing cards, I've already got like this full combo board out. I don't really care that they're doing that. That to me is very much them trying to bait my negates out. So I'm just going to let it resolve. I've still got, you know, a good amount of cards, 15 left in the deck. They've only got 1 card left in hand, so I know at this point that I'm golden now. I did not need to negate most of that stuff in order to, you know, have to deal with it there. And then sure enough, their last card was Rivalry of the Warlords, so I'm very glad that I didn't use my Omni Negates, although to be fair, I did still have the Dragite up, so even if I had used my, you know, Herald of the Arclight as well, I also, I guess, had the Borreload Savage Dragon, so there really wasn't any way they were going to successfully resolve that rivalry, but all the same, you know, you do still have to be mindful of like how you use your negates. Like, yes, if you set up a board like this, you will often win, but aside from Forbidden Droplet, there are hands where your opponent will bait out enough of your negates and then all of a sudden they'll slap down like a Lightning Storm or a Raigeki or like it's something like that, and then like your field's gone because you used all your negates on more menial stuff that didn't matter. So even though I had a whole bunch of negates on board, I was still, as you saw, being very mindful of what I was negating. If something isn't a threat, I'm just going to go ahead and let it resolve. So that's going to do it for that game. Let's go and move on to the next. This game here is going to be against Vendread, actually, which I have almost never come across, but we do have the... At the time I was playing these games, it was the day before the Theme Chronicle event, so we had that coming up. I imagine my opponent was getting prepared for that. They'll actually get to take the first turn here, and I've got a Maxx C. I'm going to have to hope that's enough. It is. My opponent doesn't even trigger it. So they're just going to set a monster in a back row before passing. Although I will say, I do have to rely pretty heavily on this Seeker to actually resolve and hit its target. But my opponent's got an Ash Blossom, so like, even though my opponent didn't start off by doing much, I'm actually not going to be able to do too much myself. I don't have anything I can link into, even if I'd played like Almirage, that's still too big. I am going to go ahead and attack the face down monster, just to maybe clear it off the board. My opponent might need it as a material. If nothing else, it'll give me some information of what I'm playing against, and sure enough, I see the Vendread Hound Horde, so I know I'm playing against Vendreads here. Now, next they have a pre-prep. I'm actually not really particularly concerned, even though I'm not like super duper familiar with what my opponent's deck is able to do. Like, I'll admit, like, I've not really played against Vendread dearly enough to have a good grasp on how it works, but I know that this deck is like pretty reliant on battling, so I'm like, you know, as long as I can negate that stuff, it'll be fine. And I've got the Maxx C, and I imagine they're gonna have to special summon quite a bit to get to a board state where they're threatening like lethal on me. Plus, on top of that, I can go ahead and throw out my Koa'ki Supplier here, which will be an extra body to defend with as well. So, I don't think Vendreads can really do piercing, at least some of the ones that I've read. I'll add a Koa'ki Guardian too, of course, there's no reason not to. It'll help me smooth out my draws, make my deck a little bit lighter there. Yeah, that's the thing too about Vendreads, and one of the reasons I'm not really concerned here is that they're under Maxx C, and also I'm pretty sure they can't OTK me. At least as far as I know. Now, they do have this Fendred Battlelord coming out, and I got so lucky by drawing Valor exactly here, because Fendred Battlelord was actually about to make it so I couldn't use monster effects for the rest of this turn, and that actually would have been a problem, but like I said, I got exceptionally lucky and managed to draw Effect Valor on the same special summon as Battlelord hitting the field, so now if I draw into Nibiru, I'm still able to use it later in the turn. I think my opponent figures they're just in deep at this point. I noticed they didn't stop there. I'm trying to think if I would have. I mean, I don't know. I think I actually draw Nibiru on this draw too, yeah. To be fair, they only had like a couple more special summons coming down, but I just got, you know, pretty lucky by drawing Nibiru. Although, to be fair, I've drawn a lot of cards. It wasn't out of the question for me to draw Valor slash Imp. Well, Imperm would have done anything here, so I guess Valor and Nibiru are other one-ups, huh? In any case, we drew enough cards off Maxx that I think it's fine. Yeah, but here when the second Battlelord comes down as the effect goes to activate, I'm definitely going to end up calling Nibiru here. Unless they don't activate it. Oh yeah, it's each effect once per turn, so I actually just ash the other effect, and then yeah, as they go to enter their battle phase, that's when I'm going to wipe the board. And then at this point the game's just pretty much over, so yeah, we didn't have a super ideal opening hand, but this is one reason why I do like playing, you know, like the Imperms and the Valor and all that stuff, is because, like, you know, as much as I would love to lean into just like full-on comboing on turn one, you know, we do have to reconcile with the fact that we're going to be made to go second sometimes, so we do have to have a game plan ready for that as well. But there's that game. We've got one more to take a look at. Let's just go ahead and jump straight into it. So this last duel is actually a deck that I've recently faced a couple of times, so I don't know if it's like a more recent innovation or if it's just getting more popular, but this is actually like a 60 card Zephyra Adventure Tenyi abomination of a deck. Anyway, I'm going to start off with Analyzer and try to hit here. I'm going to have to hit, but unfortunately, my opponent's got a Cyframe Gear Gamma. They actually managed to open it. They're 60 card deck, so not particularly lucky for me. Gonna have to lose that on that Analyzer. I thought about maybe leading with Rocksies, but I don't have Koa'ki or Supplier in hand is the problem, so I don't have an extender. So opponent's gonna start off with a Dark Contract with the Gate. I played this deck, I should know that. Yeah, with the Gate. So I'm kind of wondering as I see this DDD Vice King Requiem, like, what's my opponent doing here, you know? Well, I noticed in general they were playing a 60 card deck, and I was like, okay, 60 card DDDs, like, I wonder what's up here. So as they go to use their Divisor King, I'm just going to Imperm it, and I figure, like, okay, my opponent's probably not going to do too much beyond that, right? That seemed like kind of a weak play, but they then go ahead and Griffin, and after that, is this where they go into the Electromite and things really start to get crazy? I think it is. Yes, so yeah, now they're going to go into Electromite, and, well, like I said, things are really going to start to get kind of wild here, so they even have a Royal Finish one. I'm extremely envious of that. They put the Guitar in their Pendulum Zone, or in their extra deck, and then from there, their Pendulum Zone. That's going to let them summon the Symphonic Warrior Mike's, and they actually get another normal summon off of that as well. Now from there they get to go into Barricade Board, which is importantly a machine, and then from there, machine, you know, two machines, link 3, oh, it's a Auroradon. And as soon as I saw Auroradon, I was like, oh, I know what's happening from here. I know how the rest of this combo plays out. You know, I got to admit, and I've seen some other people in the comments say this, and it actually makes me happy to see it. I miss Adventure Tenyi. I miss that deck. I gotta say, and it might just be because I was one of the people playing it, it really didn't feel particularly oppressive. Like, yeah, we were seeing it a lot in the meta, but it didn't feel like it was... It just feels like there's a lot of opportunities to, like, mess this deck up in terms of its combo, so... I don't know. That is probably just bias on my part, to be totally honest, but I do miss this deck. I liked it a lot. It was a lot of fun to play. And seeing this variant, again, I've run this variant actually a couple of times on ladder. I'm a little intrigued. There's a part of me that maybe wants to try it out, but I don't know. Playing a 60 card deck that doesn't play grass is a pretty hard sell for me, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, was that the Imperm Zone? That was the Imperm Zone. I was like, that Zephyr Providence got negated. Yeah, that was the Imperm Zone. So, my opponent actually doesn't get to OTK me, I think because they played Province in the Imperm Zone, but it's not really gonna matter. I just didn't draw anything that actually was gonna like affect the gameplay. Now, that's not true necessarily. If they let this Rocksies resolve, I could maybe try to draw like a Koa'ki or Supplier here, but of course they're not gonna let the Rocksies resolve, so that's going to seal the game with Rocksies being negated here. I'm just going to ultimately concede. So that is a loss for my part, but I wanted to show this game because, I don't know, I miss Adventure 10E. I felt really nostalgic for it when I played this game. And again, this variant that my opponent was playing against, or playing with rather, that I was playing against here, I haven't seen it yet. I've seen it a couple of times again since, and I'm a little intrigued by it. So if you're interested in seeing that deck that my opponent's playing, let me know, and I might go out of my way to build that in the future. But in any case, that's all the time that I've got for today's video, so I'll just go ahead and move now to the outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me, not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There, for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.